And it was a shock to me when I began learning that science cannot answer certain really tough questions. And so, well, first and foremost was the question, simple but profound question of where did everything come from? Now, up until then, I had drank the Kool-Aid. I had bought into the standard scientific explanation of the Big Bang Theory. Now, back then, when I was a grad student, there was just kind of the vanilla flavor Big Bang Theory. Now, there are various flavors of Big Bang Theory. We don't have to get into it. But there's the inflationary Big Bang Theory and so forth. But and then you have cold matter and dark matter. It's much more complicated now. But back then, the answer to my question, where did everything come from? The answer to that tough question that science was offering me, my beloved science, was saying, well, it's the Big Bang Theory. Okay, well, it's a very glamorous theory, and it's a, but then, as a grad student, I started taking classes in cosmology, and especially when I started broadening out from just physics into astronomy and math. So I started taking classes in cosmology, and when you look at the Big Bang Theory in detail, up close and personal, as it were, you start seeing it's got a lot of problems. It's got a lot of holes. And scientists, especially scientists who are atheists, they'll oh no, it's just they're just little minor things we can, we have an explanation. Oh, well, no, you don't. And so there was a point where, for me to maintain my intellectual integrity, my intellectual honesty, I just really had to face up to the fact that the answer to my tough question that science was offering me just wasn't it wasn't adequate. But then that created a crisis for me, because here I am, this young man who has lived all his life believing that science could answer all my tough questions. I really believed it. I believed that given enough time, gather enough evidence, science will answer all our questions. Well, I've left that naivete behind many, many years ago, because that ain't going to happen. In fact, quite the opposite. As we ask more questions and we dig more deeply, the questions multiply like rabbits, and the questions become deeper and more profound. And the Big Bang Theory is an example of that, where, okay, that's a good start. All right, the universe began with kind of an expansion, explosive expansion of some kind. It wasn't like people think, like a stick of dynamite that goes off. It's more subtle than that. It's literally time and space erupted from the quantum vacuum. And the quantum vacuum itself is, woof, that's, that is like a logical contradiction, but we don't need to get into that. But that, you're like, okay, well, the quantum vacuum is nothing, right? And it burped out this universe. So, boom, there's your answer. Nothing, everything came out of nothing. Well, how exactly does that work? And when you start looking at the math and you start looking at the physics and the astronomy behind it, you realize it's no, it doesn't answer the question, where did everything come from? It kicks the can down the road. So because you say, okay, well, what happened before the Big Bang? Well, there was the quantum vacuum. Oh, okay. Well, where did the quantum vacuum come from? Well, the natural laws of the universe. Oh, okay. Well, where did the natural laws of the universe come from? I mean, and I don't mean to be flippant, but I'm just trying to communicate to your viewers that that's just really the honest truth. And I am, if anything, I am intellectually rigorous. I am strict. I don't buy any baloney. Not from Christians, not from scientists. I don't buy baloney, period. I ask tough questions and I demand honest answers. But there was a crisis then. I was like, oh, okay, well, if my science can't answer it, and my science was my entire world, where do I go for answers? Where can I possibly hope to find some credible answer to my question, where did everything come from? And so that's where I remember one of my professors, Carl Sagan, who's a pretty well-known astronomer, he was one of my professors, and I remember he was just getting to be famous at the time. He was going on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he created the Cosmos series, which became a big hit. And so I just remember Carl, when he was being interviewed by reporters, he would often refer to the Vedas, and being totally, how do I want to say, a blank slate when it came to religions. I didn't know what the Vedas were. Again, I was just a scientist. That's all I cared about. And but when I reached this crisis where I had to explore outside my scientific world for answers to my questions, I thought, well, that's the place to start, Vedas. So I went to the library. Hey, it's the sacred literature of the Hindu religion. Great. If it's good enough for Carl, it's good enough for me. So, like everything I do in life, to this day, I just dove in with both hands and both feet. I don't do anything halfway, Jana. I don't do anything halfway. And so it was actually kind of interesting, diving in and studying. Hinduism is, arguably the oldest religion on earth, and it's been around, but it's a very amorphous religion. It's not really one religion. It's kind of a mishmash of stuff. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I really make it a point. I really, really make it a point not to disrespect any other religion, including atheism. Okay, I just that's not my job. That's not what God has called me to do. The job God has called me to do, and it's so crystal clear in my mind now, is to speak truth with love. And so I love atheists because I know what they're going through. I was there. I was one of them, and I understand their confusion. I understand them. So then I remember a friend of mine who got wind of the fact that I was here. I go off on my spiritual journey, I guess you'd call it. First time I ever stepped outside the scientific world.